this game, it's 100% lock that you're going into the playoffs. Why would this not be a bigger game than the Colts game? Now, I understand, like, the Colts game was a huge game. It was our first winning season. Everything was on the line with that.
Yep.
We still had to win another game to be in a situation where we're looking up at things, saying 3 games left. We have a high percent chance of going to the playoffs. But you mean to tell me this isn't the biggest game because if you win this game, it's a lock, 100% chance that you're in the postseason? This is a big game, baby.
It is a big game. It is a big game. It is. I'm not saying it's not a big game.
Hey, watch your mouth now.
I'm not saying it's not a big game. It's just not as meaningful as the Colts game.
Oh, my. How?
Because if you lost against the Colts, your playoff probability went below 50%. It's just so wide-ranging of the outcome. With a win, you're over 90%. With a loss, you're back below 50%. That's not the case here with the Chargers. In fact,
I don't like the mindset.
I'm just telling you what the math says.
I don't like the mindset.
Math doesn't have an opinion.
Right.
It's not emotional. It's just math. If they won on Sunday, they're where they are now, over 90% win probability. It would have gone down to 42%. You would have been more likely to miss the playoffs than make the playoffs. And now, because you won that game, there's a scenario where you could lose all 3 games and still go to the NFL playoffs. And it's actually, how about this? If they went 0-3 down the stretch, it's still more likely that they go to the playoffs than unlikely. But that's true because they won that game this past weekend.
Which is it's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
It's a big deal. But you mean to tell me you can lose all 3 games and you still have a 100% chance of making the playoffs?
Not 100%, no.
All right, so
No.
if that's the case,
Phil,
if that's the case,
Phil, it's a big game.
all right.
It's just not as big as one this past weekend. Do you think this game is bigger than the one this past weekend?
I think this game is huge.
So do I.
I think, no, you said it's a big game, not a huge game.
I think this thing is gargantuan. How about that?
I like that. I just, I understand where you're going with this, but if those players in that locker room are thinking like how we are and how we're talking, like, hey man, if we lose these games, like we'll still get there, then it's gonna be a rough 3 games for us. It's a Thursday night game. I'm a little nervous for this game, guys. I truly am. It's a different game.
Yeah, it is.
And, it's not because it's like, hey, if we lose, like, we're out of it. It's more so of, like, you still want to build momentum going into the playoffs.
Hey, this entire football operation offensively has such a long way to go. Like,
hell, you're talking we have arrived.
No.
You can lose all 3 games and still be in the playoffs.
I said there is a scenario. Again, that's not an opinion. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
But they have so much stuff to iron out. I mean, this offense, holy jumping. Yeah. It's got a long way to go. Bo has 5 turnovers in the last 2 games. The running game
has to get cleaned up.
Looks like it's Dante and Kevin Kistner. No disrespect.
Come on now.
To anyone involved.
Now Kev ran the 40 in like 6 seconds, guys. Come on now. Don't disrespect Kev.
Oh my gosh. So here's some of the math. According to The Athletic and the New York Times playoff simulator that we've been using for years and been using every Tuesday all season long, they simulate the season 100,000 times after collecting every data point known to man.
Now, are you still paying $4 or has that moved up?
It has not moved up. Okay. I'm still paying $4. Good. I'm still in the introductory offer. It jumps up to $16.99 here next month. So, gotta jump on that and cancel that before that happens. But so we've been looking at this right now, according to that model. All right, and everyone's model is going to be 1 or 2 points off. ESPN's different from. According to the New York Times and The Athletic, the Broncos have a 91% playoff probability. 91%. It was 1% after week 2, and it's now 91%.
This is why you play the games.
It really is.
This is why there's not a lot of people out there that gave the Denver Broncos a chance.
Right.
The odds makers had us winning 5 games this year, maybe 6.
Right.
And you're talking about we have a 91% chance of making the playoffs with 3 games left in the season. You win this game here on Thursday night, it's a 100% chance, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, you're on it. If they win on Thursday Night Football, the Denver Broncos will have a 100% playoff probability.
I like those odds. That's a fact.
Now that's a fact.
Now the other 2 games, now if you can get to 100%, then you can kind of say, hey, we arrived. because you have a 100% chance of making the playoffs.
Well, even if they win, they won this past week. Does it feel like they've arrived?
No, you're right. You're right. They have a lot of work to do, and you just said it. At the quarterback position with Bo Nix, with the running game, even for defense. Now, defense has played great, but if you think that you can give up chunk plays like the defense did against the Colts and think you're going to win these big games against Buffalo, against the Steelers, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. If they lose, should they lose on Thursday Night Football? And look, they've already lost to the Chargers, 23-16. Back it was week 6, I believe it was. If they lose, the Broncos actually still have a playoff probability of 86%. That's wild. Think about the position. I'm not saying lower the mindset or take your foot off the gas, but think about the position of luxury that you, through your own hard work and execution, have put yourself in.
Well, why is that, though? Like, why are they able to have this situation where we're 3 games left in the season and you can lose this game and still have an 86% chance to make it to the playoffs?
They've just handled business. They've handled business when it's been in front of them. They're not playing catch-up, right? Like last year, the way that they started, and then they're playing you have no margin for error. The Broncos actually have some margin for error. You don't want to work like that and operate like that. You still want to keep that sense of desperation and bring it to 100%. But that's remarkable. Like, you can lose and your playoff probability is still close to 90%. Now let's game theory it out. Say they lose to the Chargers and Cincinnati.
Which could happen. 2 tough teams.
Could absolutely happen.
Tough teams.
Both on the road against top-tier quarterbacks. They could lose against the Chargers and Cincinnati, and the Denver Broncos will still have a 76% playoff probability. But then it gets a little bit nerve-wracking.
Dicey
a little
there.
bit. Because then you're hosting the Chiefs the last game of the year. We don't know what that's going to look like. Mahomes' availability. Will they rest starters? Don't know. But they could lose out to the Chargers, the Bengals, and the Chiefs. Lose all 3 games. And their playoff probability will still be 54%, more likely than not, than they would go that they would go to the playoffs. And that's not counting anyone else in the AFC that would lose.
help us out. Man, I tell you what, like it's great to have that luxury. It's great to be able to lose 3 games and still have that opportunity. But man, coming from like, hey, if you win just 1 out of 3 games, it's a 100% chance you're making the playoffs. To if you lose all 3 of these games, which could happen, you're playing against 3 tough teams, 2 of them on the road, and then the last one at home. And who knows if Patrick Mahomes plays? Man, but if you lose all 3, you got a 54% chance.
Right.
That's a little uneasy to me.
It is. So you got to find a way. If the Denver Broncos win 1 of their last 3 games, and it doesn't matter which one, it really doesn't. Doesn't have to be division, none of that. Win 1 of your last 3, and their probability is 99%. So figure it out. Win 1 more game. Thursday night would be great. What's the most winnable of the 3 left on the schedule?
I want to say, I really want to say the Bengals, but the Bengals kind of scare me because of who's at quarterback with the Cincinnati Bengals. Who's at the receiver position? We have 2 really good receivers in T. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow is having a phenomenal year. The only reason why the Bengals are where they are with their record is because of the defense, and the defense is not good this year.
It's awful.
I don't know, Zach. I don't know, because the Chargers are tough on a Thursday night.
They are.
And the Chargers are coming back from getting that butt spanked. And so now you're in a situation where the Chargers want to prove that was just a one-off game and that they're ready to be a playoff team. And then on the other side, the last game of the year, you got the Kansas City Chiefs, you don't know if Patrick Mahomes is going to play or not. You don't know if they're going to rest their players. That's a tough game. The Chiefs are supposed to win that Super Bowl this year. So it's a tough matchup.
It is. So what's the answer?
I would have to say right now still the Bengals.
Okay.
The Bengals, just because the defense isn't as strong as some of these other defenses. The Chargers defense is strong. The Chargers defense, they have the Derwin James. They have Nick Bosa. They have a couple players back that they did not have when they played us the first game of the year or earlier this season. So I would have to say the Bengals would be the easiest game on this schedule. But I'm still going, hey, go in there and handle business Thursday night.
Yeah.
It's a tough game. Don't feel sorry for yourselves.
Yeah.
Don't feel sorry for yourselves. Go out there and hand the Chargers a loss. Secure yourself as a playoff team. Lock yourself in, 100% lock if you win this game right now, and then start to get healthy for the playoffs.
Gosh, that would be so nice to just win on Thursday night. But again, in addition to the Chargers being tough, a top-tier quarterback, an excellently coached team coming off a loss, the road team on Thursday night is just at a historical disadvantage on a short week going on the road. And I don't really – the Broncos country is going to be so well represented in the crowd. I'm not, like, worried about, like, crowd noise or a hostile environment. It's just the nature of playing a football game and then turning around 4 days later, getting on a tube that goes 20,000 feet in the air, flies through the sky. Such an unnatural sequence for human beings to fly in airplanes. I know we all do it. But then to get down on the ground and then try to win a game, execute at a high level. What's the spread? I have not. Is it 3 and it's Chargers -3? Okay, so the Broncos are an underdog. My guess would be, total guess, they would be a slight underdog in Cincinnati as well. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and you're on the road. If you're the Denver Broncos, you're on the road in Cincinnati. That's going to be a tough game. Now, if you'll be favored in the Chiefs game if Patrick Mahomes does not play, because it's going to be a home game for the Denver Broncos. Patrick Mahomes doesn't play, and you should be able to win that game if Pat doesn't play.
Yeah. I honestly, I actually don't like that game either. I really don't.
What bothers you about it?
Just, well, nothing bothers me about it if they find a way to win one of their next two. I would hate the scenario coming down to Week 18. I would just hate it. And I don't care if Mahomes is playing or not, because we've seen Broncos get beat by a group of nobodies with last game of the year. Or maybe not last game. I don't think it was the last game. This is at the end with Mike Shanahan. They're playing a Buffalo Bills team that was bad. They were down bad. It's the end of the season. Somehow Bills win. I shared the experience growing up. Bills had the longest playoff drought in American sports. All they had to do was beat the Steelers Week 17 back in the day. Steelers had the division wrapped up with Big Ben. They played all backups. They still won. I don't want it to come to a one-off game. And look, there's still a scenario where the Broncos could lose all 3 games and still make the playoffs. I understand that. We talked about that probability earlier in the segment. But even against Carson Wentz, Andy Reid would take that personal. He'd be like, we are going to scheme this up. We're going to go in there and win.
Yes, and Carson Wentz is not a bad quarterback.
Nope.
Carson Wentz, before he got injured and Nick Foles went in and helped win the Super Bowl, Carson Wentz helped the Philadelphia Eagles get to the playoffs, and before he got hurt, he was doing a great job.
He was an MVP candidate that year.
MVP, yes, he was. And then Nick Foles took over, and they had the Philly special, that trick play. Then Nick Foles ends up catching the touchdown and winning and beating Tom Brady. But so you're agreeing with me with the hardest game or the easiest game on the schedule? Was it the
most winnable?
Most winnable game on the schedule? Would it be Cincinnati? Who are you going with? Just think, say that the Chiefs are going to play.
I'm going to go with Cincinnati too, just because. You know what? No, I'm not going with it. I don't like that game, and I don't like this game on Thursday either. I'm actually going to say, and I can't believe this, and it's just situational. It's just situational. And styles making fights. I am going to say Kansas City at home in Week 18. Banking on Mahomes not playing for one of 2 reasons, because now you have 2 reasons to draw from why he wouldn't play. The injury and having things wrapped up and resting. I'm going to go with that.
So you're saying it, so. And
I can't believe I'm saying that.
For sure, but it's like, hey, Denver loses these 2 games, Thursday night and then next Saturday.
Saturday now, officially,
which is
officially today.
Which is that's hard to do, right? That's one less day of rest. So you lose those 2 games, you have one more game to lock it in. It's against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, if you lose it, like you said, you still have a chance to make it. But man, that would be uneasy for everybody.
It would be. But to think that it's not a realistic scenario is naive. And Dante behind the glass, he found what's called a look-ahead line. A look-ahead line. So you're not looking at the lines for this week. Oftentimes, these gambling outfits or outlets, they'll make the next week's game available to you Broncos are an underdog in Cincinnati. Vegas is unbothered what Cincinnati's record is. They're just looking at the matchup. Who are you lately? They're coming off a double-digit win in Tennessee. The week before that, coming off a win in Dallas. So you are an underdog in consecutive weeks. It could get real.
Well, so then I was right, Zach. You knew I was coming back to it.
I know, but
I got you.
I still will stick by the math.
How?
That this past game against the Colts was more important
Zach,
than any game remaining
I didn't have
on the
to
schedule.
argue anything. You did all the hard work for me. All the arguing for me. This is not
Phil,
the biggest game.
Phil, it's just
After
math.
kind of just going through the scenarios that could happen, like,
Brother,
if you win, you're in.
Phil, if they lost this past weekend, this coming Thursday is a must-win game for Denver. Must-win. It's not a must-win now. You lose your probability. Your playoff probability is still 86%.
You're scared of the Bengals.
I'm not scared.
It's coming down to the Kansas City Chiefs. And if the
scared.
Kansas City Chiefs, who have a great chance again right now to go to the Super Bowl, we're relying on that game, the last game of the year. And if Patrick Mahomes plays, Travis Kelce plays, Pacheco plays, like you're okay. Like you feel more comfortable with that matchup? This is a big game, Zach.
It is a big game.
This is a huge one.
It's a huge one.
Thanks for the argument that
Phil,
you did all the hard
Phil,
work for.
It's not more important than this past Sunday's game. It's just not. It's just not.
It's the mindset.
Okay.
That's the mindset. And guess what?
I'm
If Denver loses
I'm a
Thursday,
fan. I'm not talking about the mindset.
there you go. If Denver loses Thursday, I guarantee all the fans out there are going to say, "Oh, it doesn't matter. We're still in it. That's a loser's mindset."
Phil,
go in there and win this game.
My mindset
Huge
has
game.
no impact on the Broncos' performance. Yes, it is a big game.
Players
It's a
listening
huge
to
game.
us today.
They're not.
Now they're driving home saying, "You know what, babe? I'm just going to relax. I'm not going to do film study.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter if we win this game."
Okay. Can you break this tie, Dante Gomez behind the glass?
So
what's more important, this past weekend's game against the Indianapolis Colts or this Thursday night against the Chargers?
I mean, it's the Colts. If you're running a race, do you want to be running it in the pole position or from behind?
Yes, so that would be the Colts.
Yeah, the Colts. Yeah, it's definitely the Colts game.
The math says I understand. It's a huge game. It's a huge game on Thursday night. I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm not. I promise I'm not. RamosLaw.com text line. Where
the Colts game was a huge game, and it gave us our first winning season, no doubt. But until we're 100% locked in the playoffs, my mindset is this is the next game on the schedule will be a big game moving forward because you have a chance to lock yourself in a playoff spot for sure. You lose. All right, you lose those next 3 games, and all of a sudden something happens with other teams because what's happening is we're calculating all this. This is just what happens if the Denver Broncos win. But what happens if something goes wrong with other teams that we need to lose? They don't lose. Now the probability of 54 may go down to 50 or 49%.
It ain't going down to 49.
Oh, look at you.
Fear not. Fear not. Fear not. Look, go win the football game. And really, it's as much for seeding. This conversation is as much for seeding as it is playoff probability.
You're right.
It's like, do you want to go to Buffalo, New York? Do you want to go to Buffalo?
No, sir.
I don't want to go to Buffalo.
No.
I don't want to go to Buffalo in January.
It's too cold. Josh Allen is playing phenomenal. You have Von Miller, a.k.a. DJ Von the Don on the other side that, hey, he's playing against his old team. Do you really want to poke that bear?
Dude, they just scored 30 points for an 8th straight game, which is an NFL record. All right? You don't want to go to Buffalo. It's just not as winnable as going to Pittsburgh. I would love to see Sean Payton and Vance Joseph game plan against Russell Wilson. I would love to see it. Now, TJ Watt's a little bit banged up. I think that for me.
I don't know because I'm nervous about that game too. Because
you should be.
You got Russ that say, "Hey, I'm about to show the world that you made a mistake." Now, people are going to take it how it is. You know, James is going to be all over this.
See, well, James is an alleged Broncos fan.
That is true.
But he has a Russell Wilson Steelers jersey. So it's just hard to follow.
My man's confused.
Well, I don't know who he would be rooting for there. But it's just if you're thinking about the Broncos potentially pulling off an upset, it's just going to be more realistic getting it done in Pittsburgh. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all. So we'll see. And guys, let us know, what do you think is a more advantageous place to play. And is there a scenario? Is there a scenario where the Broncos can somehow match up with the Houston Texans? Houston is sitting in the 4 seed right now.
That would be the best scenario right there if we could play the Houston Texans.
It would be.
C.J. Stroud, he's still having a decent year, but not the year he had last year. People are banged up on the Houston Texans defense. You're inside. It's warm.
Yep.
Let me go to Houston.
Yes, and I agree. And you know where Houston goes this weekend on Saturday? They go to Arrowhead. You know where who they're playing the next week? They're hosting Baltimore. It's not an easy schedule down the stretch for Houston. Then for the last game of the year, they go on the road and play the Titans. I know they'd be favored to win that game, but playing the Chiefs and the Ravens in back-to-back weeks, they're 9-5. They, and their division that they play in is part of their story there in the AFC South. But I don't know. It's. I'll tell you this:
just win this game,
regardless what happens in the playoffs. And maybe I'll feel differently when it's like game day. But if the Broncos are just in the playoffs, what happens next almost feels like just gravy. Again, maybe I'll feel different once you get there. And of course, I'm sure I will because you'll be so fired up to watch the actual competition. But once we get removed from the season, and maybe the anger of losing in Buffalo or Pittsburgh or whatever, and we get into the offseason, we'll be looking back of, wow, what a story. What a story the 2024 Denver Broncos were.
This is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. It's all about winning games. What I talked about earlier this year. It's about winning games, having fun. And we get to develop our young rookie quarterback. We're having fun. We get the best of both worlds. We have a young rookie quarterback that's developing every single game, whether it's good or bad. You have to go through it. You have a team that's winning games. Finally, you have your first winning season since 2016. We're one game away from locking ourselves for a guaranteed playoff spot. You got to love it.
Yeah.
But once you get in there, like you said, if we win or lose, if we win, we're going to be excited. We're saying, hey, we have a chance for the Super Bowl. If you lose, you're going to be angry for a little while. But you're saying, man, we finally got back to the playoffs.
Right.
And we have a rookie quarterback. Sean's going to be here for a very long time. The sky will be the limit. It's going to be insane. But let's just focus on this game right here. This is a huge game.
It's a huge game. We agree.
You win, you are in.
You win, you're in. It's gargantuan. It's massive.
Thank you.
Just not more important than the Colts game. All right. There's a good